Are we live? Looks like we're live. All right, welcome, my friends. Excellent. It is that magical time of the month. Final Friday of the month. The final live stream of the month means live feedback. All right, we've got some new faces this time. We've got some regulars this time. And all of it is wonderful, wonderful music. All right, so let's keep lines together. Keep with next. I don't know. Okay, just do that. There we go. All right, so we've got a couple pieces to go through. Do I have my notebook? I need a notebook with me. Right here on the floor. Here we go. Got my notebook. Got my pen. I've got my caffeine. All right, so let's get started, shall we? All right, first one, a regular of the channel, Ad Hoc. All right, requests. I've got some complaints about the track missing a drop. It doesn't get powerful enough and it misses some of the high voltage energy. At what point should I change the structure to get the catharsis? And what kind of catharsis could you imagine in this song? Which mixing issues do you hear? All right, awesome. Euthymania, welcome, my friend. Ad Hoc is in the comments. Welcome, welcome. All right, everybody, don't forget, like the stream, leave comments. This is all very helpful for the channel. Thank you. Additional information from Ad Hoc. I got the vocals from Splice, and I felt the lyrics could cooperate with Gregorian chant Dies Irae and its texts. Oh, that's always fun to try and find ways to fit that in. I experimented with some new sound banks I found on the internet, and I tried my best to put the vocals in the best context I could. Awesome! That's a fun, creative challenge. So for those of you who don't know, the Dies Irae is an old Gregorian chant that goes back at least 1,000 years. It's a simple melody that goes bum, 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 and it continues, but it's been such a famous motif. It's been reused through every era of Western European music and continues to be used today in film music, pop music, media music, concert music, everywhere. It's become this incredible stance, this metaphor for death. All right. Welcome, Douglas Brett. Happy Friday, my friend. Welcome. All right, so let's give a listen to it, shall we?
We're holding out to bring it all home. 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 We're holding out to bring it all bridges are burning, old secrets are calling
There's the Dies Irae. Oh, you're doing the full melody.
When castles fall, when castles fall,
I love that.
when castles fall, when castles fall, when castles fall, when castles
All right, there we go. So there must be a little bit of tag on the end, which is good because the limit's supposed to be 4 minutes. Ad hoc, my friend, so much wonderful, wonderful piece of music. All right, there's never been a bad piece of music submitted to these live streams. All right, because all music, in my opinion, is good music so long as you have the effort to put it out there and try to be better. This is fantastic. So lots of cool stuff to say. I love the guitar at the very beginning. It has a beautiful slow build that I really like. So I think your question was, so Ad Hoc, your question was, you got some complaints about the track missing a drop and it doesn't get powerful enough, all right? And it misses some high voltage energy. I can see where that is. I think that's a symptom. I don't think it's the main issue. All right. First off, where you ask at which point would I change the structure to get the catharsis? If I were to say one spot to just hit the massive, like the really big hit would be 1 minute, 20 seconds. We'll come here. We'll just listen to this. So around here. Basically, what happens is up to this point, you've had the vocals in this entire time. And it's a splice sample, so it's gonna be repetitive, but she repeats it a bunch of times and then she drops out and the instrumentals take over, all right? When she drops out, when that constant element disappears, and then there's a moment where the voice is gone, and then she comes back a little while later. I think I have a note. She comes around about the 2 minute marker. That space, that like 40 seconds where there's no vocals, that could be a place where you can really show off the instrumentation. So if I were to say just face value, here's where you put the big climax, that's where I would put it. Now you notice it's pretty early on in the piece. That's 1 minute, 20 seconds of a 4 minute piece of music, with the last 30 seconds just being silence. That happens really fast. And that's the thing I was gonna say. This piece actually feels, I got 2 big takeaways for this. 2 big takeaways. 2 big takeaways for Ad Hoc. All right. Takeaway number 1. Here's where so backtrack. Takeaway number 1. Here's what I'm gonna say. Follow the rule of 3s. All right. The rule of 3 is something that pops up everywhere. All right. The first time I ever heard, I'm going to drop a little bit of lore on you guys. The first time I ever heard about the rule of 3s was in an improv troupe I did in high school. I was a huge, as you can probably imagine, I was a huge theater nerd in high school. I was part of an improv troupe. I was actually pretty good at it too. I was fairly funny, I think. At least I got lots of laughs from the crowd. And I had a great mentor, incredibly funny man, who told us about the rule of 3s, where he says a joke can be repeated 3 times and be funny. But the 4th time it gets repeated, it's not funny anymore. All right? That rule of 3s follows so many things. All right. And in music, the rule of three is you can take, especially with sample-based music, is you can repeat something verbatim 3 times before it gets repetitive, before it gets boring. All right. You can repeat it 3 times. And on the 4th time, your audience will be sick of it unless you change it. All right. So there are several times throughout this where, for example, the part where she's singing Bring It On, and then something about castles. Later on, there's a part where it's repetition. It says 3 minutes and 3 seconds. All right. Where there's another line she's repeating. All right. The rule of threes. You can repeat something 3 times before it gets old on the 4th repetition. All right. So in music, repetition equals intensification. All right. I don't even know if I spelled that correctly. The little red squigglies aren't popping up though, so I'm going to imagine it's fine. Anytime you repeat an idea in music, it's intensified. It's emphasized as being important. All right. And it should match that. I should cut that out. Every time you repeat something in music, it gets emphasized as being important. And your arrangement should reflect that. All right. The repetition needs purpose. So again, for those of you who work with samples, this is very important. If you want to repeat the same sample over and over again, that repetition needs a purpose. The 2 most common purposes, type this up, the 2 most common purposes of repetition. All right, and I'm not talking about like, oh, well, I'm repeating it so the audience remembers it. Or I'm repeating it because it's an important theme. That's the different manner of it. I'm talking about just the act of repeating an idea in music. The 2 most important purposes of repeating it is to build energy or reduce energy. All right. So you can think of it as like a build up or a fade out. Every time you repeat the same line, every time you repeat the same sample, build energy, add instruments, add rhythmic ideas, add layers, add size, whatever you do, you're going to add something to build. All right. So around 3 minutes and 3 seconds, she's repeating the same thing over and over again. Let's go to that moment. Here we go. You have this beautiful, really cool statement of the DSC, and you hear her singing When Castles Fall. You're doing some really cool stuff with the panning. She repeats it. That was 3 times, I believe. 4 times. Now you're adding 5 times. It works. So something else I should mention is you repeated that 6 times, so you may have noticed, all right, that didn't get boring. All right, it was fine. It still worked. The reason why is because each statement of When Castles Fall wasn't a single repetition. If you have your headphones, then you'll notice that each time she repeated, those groups of 3 were panning. When castles fall over here, when castles fall over here, when castles fall in the middle. Then the cycle repeats, all right? So then each of those, since you're changing the panning, you're doing effects with the sample, that keeps it a little fresher. So then each repetition of that same panning pattern becomes the focus of the 3 things. But as you do this, building energy, and you started doing that towards the end, but you want to focus on making that more purposeful. The repetition has purpose. This is how, when people ask me questions like, how do I repeat ideas without getting boring? There are 2 ways. One is adding a little bit of variety, but number 2 guides the variety. You give the repetition a purpose. You give it a direction. It's no longer repetition for the sake of repeating itself. It's repetition to guide energy, to build towards something, or to fade out from something. All the great pieces of music you hear that are very built on energy, or that are built on repetition. Lots of Hans Zimmer soundtracks, lots of pop music by like Michael Jackson, lots of Baroque music even from like Bach, where you've got the fugue. It's just built entirely based off repeating ideas for the most part. A Passacaglia has a repeating bass line through an entire piece of music. These are things that are hundreds of years old, and the repetition still serves a purpose, if that makes sense. This is something that's very intuitive to human beings, but something that we still have to master as composers. All right, awesome. So that's number 1. All right, so takeaways. Follow the rules of threes. All right. Hopefully that's help. Hopefully I wasn't too meandering. I think I may have had too much caffeine before this. But so that's something to help with your payoff. All right. Number 2, and this is going to be a little more direct. 2, pay attention to your structure. All right. So this piece actually feels like 2 or 3 different pieces. Nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But a structure forms that structure equals the number and order of different themes used in your music. So for example, AABA is a very common song structure. You have a verse, a bridge, a verse. All right, it's a very common one. Every great composer, the very first step to writing a piece of music, a full-length piece of music, the very first step is structure. Invariably. Because the structure is what informs the piece. You cannot write a symphony without understanding you want to write a symphony, all right? And the structure comes from the symphony. You cannot write a song without knowing you want to write a song. And the structure comes from the type of song you're writing. You cannot write a soundtrack without knowing, okay, there's a story I'm telling. The structure is what informs the direction of your film. So as you come up with the structure, every single structure must contain a climax. All right? You know what? I'm not going to say every single structure because some genres of music purposefully avoid structure. Most structures benefit from a climax. All right? A moment of maximum intensity. Musical intensity. All right? So, in his book, Musical Art and Craft, in fact, I've got it right here. Where is it? I swear I have it in here. I just hit. Is it? Was I reading it? I think I was reading. Yeah, okay. Musical composition, art and craft. Sorry, it's under a pile of books I was reading on my couch. By Alan Belkin. He mentioned specifically that as you structure a piece of music, it can be immensely helpful to start with the climax, to figure out, all right, what is the climax of my music at least going to look like? Is it going to be a moment of massive instrumentation? Sometimes, oftentimes in films, that's the way it goes. You have the biggest instrumentation at the biggest moment in the story. Sometimes, if you've just got a string quartet and that's it, that's the budget, adding more instruments isn't an option. So you have to go, all right, I'll add more layers, or I'll add bigger dynamics, or stronger harmonies, whatever it is. But if you are worried about, let's see here, ad hoc. Okay, so awesome. Ad hoc, as I go through this, feel free to throw in questions as well. I want to make sure that this information is helpful in answering your questions. All right, so if you are worried about whether or not your music has a big payoff, it's very intelligent to start by planning the payoff. So if you say, all right, this is my structure here, AABA, you know right here, B, section B is where I'm going to have my big payoff. You can say, all right, I'm going to have the massive instrumentation here. So then you can have a plan of how are you going to lead into it and how are you going to go away from it. If you plan what your climax will look like, as well as say, ahead of time, which musical parameters will be used to make it feel big, you can plan how you will approach and leave that climax ahead of time. All right? See, absolutely every word is very, very helpful. Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm getting 2 questions. HBM Risk and the Gamer Guy. How do I send in music? Excellent question. I think I get this question every single time. So, the way you send in music, unfortunately, because I have to make sure I listen to each of the pieces at least once ahead of time to make sure no one sends anything inappropriate as a prank. The way you know how to set music, the next one. These live feedbacks are always the last Friday of the month, unless I have to reschedule, but they were always planned for the last Friday of the month. So the next one will be August 29th. Set your calendars, set an alarm, because the Monday ahead of time is when I open up the gates, all right? The 25th is when you can submit. In fact, I believe ad hoc I believe it was either Ad Hoc or I believe it was Polak, actually. One of the first 2 people on this list actually followed my advice, I think, and set a calendar invite because the morning of Monday this week, I hadn't even made the announcement yet, they sent me their music. All right. So send it music. You can send it to me over email. You can send it to me over Instagram. But I will always make... In fact, let's see here. View channel. View my channel. I always make an announcement. See right here. A couple days ago, last month, the streaming is the live feedback session with instructions on how to submit it. I also send one on Discord. I put one on Instagram. So I put it always. So just make sure that you're following me. Set a reminder. If you don't want to wait for free feedback, you can always sign up for private lessons as well. I give feedback during private lessons. That goes much more in depth because I listen to it multiple times. Let's see here. So, excellent. So hopefully that helps. I think I will move on. Wonderful piece. I'm a huge music nerd. I'm a huge music history nerd. So hearing the Dies Irae, it was really fun for me. A lot of people get annoyed with it, I hear, because they're like, it gets shoehorned everywhere. I think that's part of the fun. It's when you realize that for over 1,000 years, this melody has captured the imaginations of composers and human beings. When you realize that everyone from the anonymous monk who wrote this melody, to Hector Berlioz, to Liszt, to Camille Saint-Saëns, to Hans Zimmer and John Williams, all these composers across generations have used this melody and found clever ways to sneak it in. I always get a real kick out of it when I see other people try it out. So wonderful work, Ad Hoc. Wonderful piece of music. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the courage to send in your sample and have it read and listened to live. I appreciate you. All right, so let's see here. Moving on. We have Polat requests, hi. I need help with escaping chord progressions. I feel really stuck in this piece, and I had to completely remove them in some parts because I just couldn't shape them moving forward. Ooh, harmony is one of my specialties. It's one of my favorite things to do. Let's give it a listen, shall we? I like the little chime. The harp is really nice too. Ooh, bringing in some soundscapes. I like that. That's a clever idea. Beautiful. Very haunting. I love the use of the soundscape where the music starts fading out and the soundscape starts fading in. You have that brief moment of time where it's just background sounds before the music comes back. That's a very creative use of this as sound as an element. Okay, so wonderful, wonderful job, Polak. So, how many times can I say so? We have our theme for the stream. All right, every stream seems to have a theme. Every live feedback seems to have a stream of ideas for whatever reason that keep popping up for each submission. Our two themes for today's stream are structure and repetition. All right, first, let's do a recap of structure because we just did that with ad hoc. All right, structure is the number and order of different themes used in a piece of music. Yes, some music theory purists might ream me for that, but they might say it's more complicated than that, but it's not. All right, this is, sure, it's a reductionist definition, but this is all you really need to know. Yes, learning more can benefit you, but this is all you need to know. Structure, it's the number and order of different themes in your music. If you plan this out ahead, again, as I mentioned earlier, figuring out your structure is the number one priority of every composer. It's the first step, all right? And this is something that you will hear said over and over again by professional composers, that structure is the number one rule. Now, what that structure looks like is different for different people. But for example, you cannot sit down and write a character theme without first realizing that you're writing a character theme. You might repurpose, you might be doodling around, you might come up with an idea, go, oh, that's an idea, I should turn that into something. But you don't actually start turning it into something until you know what you're turning it into. All right, so structure is one of the tools, why I bring it up, to help you realize that repetition isn't necessarily a bad thing. So right now, I have a concerto that I'm working on. Originally, it was deciding it was a violin concerto. I'm not entirely sure, though. This entire thing, I'm not done yet, Scorching. You can see 140 bars. All right? Well, how long is this? It's about 6 minutes of music, and I'm not even done. This entire thing consists of just two melodies. I have my main melody. I repeat my main melody. I have a transition of just harmony. Then I have my secondary melody. I have my secondary melody again. This right here is my exposition. All right, in a concerto or a sonata form, the structure says you have your exposition. Start with your main theme and repeat your main theme. Transition to your second theme, then repeat the second theme. So the audience is familiar with the two. All right, then traditionally in a sonata, you would repeat the entire thing. All right, so that those themes are very solidly in the mind of your listeners. I didn't really do that because this is a bit of programmatic music. I am telling a bit of a story with this one. So then I come in and I repeat my main theme, but this time it's changed. Here, we'll listen to the two different versions. All right, we'll listen to the first two versions kind of thing. Actually, no, you guys don't need to listen to my music. I mean, that's not what this stream is for. I'm going to get lost on a rabbit hole. But the idea is, then I have my other theme, and I come back, so it goes A, A, B, A. B, B, A again. So I have a structure, I have a form. And in this case, that form is being told by a very specific story. This concerto is meant to portray a conversation that I have with myself. All right? And so the different themes pop in based off the point of view that I'm trying to get across. So as you can see though, this is 6 minutes of music, only 2 themes, and it doesn't get boring. Repetition in music is not a bad thing. That's step number 2. Repetition in music is not a bad thing. It is necessary. All right? Again, some people might read me for this, but without repetition, your music is going to be less memorable. Without repetition, remember what I said about ad hoc's piece. Repetition legitimizes an idea. A mistake done on a piece of music once is a mistake. Repeated, it becomes an idea. All right? Repeated with intention, it becomes a theme. All right? So repetition in music is not a bad thing. Lots of people, and here I'm going to get in a little bit of a rant first before I address your request, Polot. Polot says specifically they're worried about how repetitive the harmony is, how the chord progression, how do I escape a chord progression? People worry about chord progressions and melodies being too repetitive. This is nonsense. All right? This is nonsense. Totally something you don't need to worry about. I mean, sure, okay, that might be a bit strong. There are, yes, they can get very repetitive, but it's because melodies and chord progressions are only 2 parameters of music. There are 9 parameters of music. There is timbre, texture, tempo, rhythm, register, articulation, dynamics, harmony, and melody. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 parameters. So yes, your melody and your harmony can repeat verbatim. You can have a single chord progression used constantly throughout an entire piece of music, and it will not sound boring if, that's a big if, you use some of these to add variety, because music does require variety. Repetition offers legitimacy to your music, but variety keeps it fresh. All right, you need both halves of the coin. So yeah, if you feel like you're not very good at coming up with cool, interesting chord progressions and you struggle to come up with one, all right, that's fine. Use your other strategies. Change your timbre. Change the instruments that are playing your melody. Change the instruments that are playing your chord progression. That keeps it fresh. Change the texture, which is the number and types of layers in your music. So yeah, maybe your chord progression is getting dull, so instead of having sustained chords, switch it to rhythmic chords, all right? Instead, maybe speed up the tempo, slow down the tempo, add a little different rhythmic idea, change registers. Instead of the chord progression being down here in the strings, pop it up here in very high strings and high woodwinds. Articulation, give it a little more of an accent on which chords get accented, which X chords get emphasized. Change the dynamics, it gets very soft down here. So harmony and melody, if you are a very repetitive writer, that's fine. I mean, yeah, you'll want to develop. If you feel terrible at writing chord progressions, hit me up. Private lessons. I have a textbook on music. Where's my textbook? I got my textbook right here. 400 pages and a big update on the way. I will be giving free digital copies to everyone who's purchased a copy of the book, physical or digital, in the past. Once the new update comes, I don't believe in charging twice, so if you have a copy, I will automatically be sending you an update when that comes out. I've added 50 pages already to the new version, and I'm going to be continuing adding even more. I've got like 6 more chapters to finish editing, then I'll be popping it out. So there are resources to help you get better at that. But in the meantime, that was what I would hear. If your harmony it's sounding boring, if your harmony is sounding repetitive, usually it's because your other ideas are super repetitive. Harmony and melody get a lot of attention because those are the ones everyone tends to focus on. Those are the ones that demand the most attention. But if your melody and your harmony sound repetitive, 8 times out of 10, it's not because they're too repetitive and that's inherently bad. It's because these are inherently repetitive. Go back to a John Williams piece of music. John Williams' music, especially in film tracks, is incredibly repetitive. But what he does is he repeats a melody over and over again, but each time he repeats it, he changes the texture. This time, the melody has a counter melody. Other times, the melody has rhythmic chords accompanying it. Sometimes the melody is just the melody in a soft flute with an arpeggio celeste underneath. He changes the numbers and types of layers with the melody. He'll change the timbre. He'll change which instrument is performing the melody. Over here, it's on the French horns. Over here, it's on the strings. Over here, it changes every single bar. It's jumping all over the orchestra to build lots of energy. He'll change the register. It's up here. It's down here. He does all these other things to keep it interesting, but the melody itself stays repetitive, so it's recognizable. So it's memorable. So it's catchy. All right? Does that make sense? So that that is my kind of rant. All right. Repetition is not a bad thing in music. It is necessary, but variety is also necessary. Repetition legitimizes an idea. Variety keeps it fresh. So again, just to summarize, if you feel that your melody or harmony are too repetitive and you don't know how to fix them, there are 7 other parameters of music. Experiment with them. All right. See what you can come up with. Now, however, even though I feel that's what's most helpful, you asked specifically, how can you get stuck in a, how can you, how do you escape a chord progression? I'll give you a couple different examples. Number 1 requires, we will listen to this. Number 1 requires some music theory knowledge. We will listen to this theme that I wrote for my concerto. This is actually an old theme. I wrote this a very long time ago. And you will see a very, very simple chord progression. Super simple melody, super simple chord progression. It is 1 chord stretched across 2 bars for the vast majority of this melody. Then it swaps to 1 chord per bar. Then, when the melody returns later, I reharmonize it. Same chord progression, but what I do is I add transition chords in between. All right? So you listen, I also added a bit of a swing to it. I adjusted the melody a little bit. And we'll listen to the full thing. You can see that I made the harmony more complex. This is what I love to do. Harmony is one of my strong suits. It's one of the things I am best at. So this is, if you want to learn more, there are plenty of resources I can recommend. My textbook surely is one of them. Private lessons would also be cool, but there's also reharmonization techniques by Randy Feltz is a fantastic option. And where is it? Did I have it in the piano bench? I think I do have it in the book, but the Berklee Book of Jazz Harmony is another fantastic textbook. But you can listen to how the and then the melody repeats. Same basic idea. So same basic chord progression. Still A minor, E minor, A major. E minor, A major. I just add some transitions throughout here to help bridge each chord to the next. That's stage number 1, but that does, like I said, require some fairly substantial music theory knowledge. So let's talk about a couple strategies that don't require substantial music theory knowledge. All right? Different ways that you can add. So here we have a very simple chord progression. Strategies for taking this simple idea and escaping it. All right? Making it sound less repetitive. Option number 1, change the inversions or the voicings. Very subtle. But effective. So I'm gonna write these, I'll write these down in a moment. Option number 2 for repeating chord progression without making it sound too boring, right? Is we'll do a little bit of part writing, all right? Look for gaps in your melody, in your chord progressions, all right? Look for moments where you have large, like little space between your voices. and just break them up a little bit. Don't worry if you're going out of the chord. Don't worry if you're going, moving the harmony. This is called part writing. And we can add just a little bit of movement. And this works really well as long as anytime you add a note, it's not articulating at the same point as another. So when I added this D, these two notes are being held. It's the only note that's moving. When I added this F sharp, it's the only note that's moving. These are all being sustained. When I added this F, it's the only note that's moving. These are all being sustained. If you would like to learn more, again, my textbook is a fantastic resource, but so is YouTube. Tabletop Composer, part writing. Look at that. Harmony for Composers, part number 1, 9, part writing. All right. So excellent. There you go. So then I have part writing. Then there's timbre. You can try voicings. Take your chords, and instead of having them be closed voicings like this where it's all packed, take one of the voices and raise it an octave so they're more spaced out. You can use suspended chords. Suspended chords being very useful for when you have two chords that have 0 notes in common. For example, here we have D major and E minor. The roots of these notes are next to each other in the scale. That's how you know a chord has no notes in common. If two chords are next to each other in a scale, they will have 0 notes in common. Every other combination of chords will have something in common. So D major and E minor, no notes in common. So we can say, find the third scale degree of D major. So D major, when you build it on a keyboard, is D. Then you add an F, and then an A. So like in root position, I would say, D major. The middle note of a triad is called the third. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this third, we're gonna drag it over into our next chord. We're gonna find the third of our E minor, which is E major, which is G sharp. We're gonna stretch that over, and it creates a sus chord. All right, a suspended. In this case, a suspended 2, meaning that we replaced the third with the 2 momentarily. If the sus chord happens on beat 1, it will be emphasized. If it happens off beat 1, it will be a little more subtle. So let's say you don't like how crunchy that sounds. You're like, that sounds a little bit crunchy. So let's de-emphasize it. And instead of stretching the third out, we'll bring it a little closer. We'll bring in the G sharp. We'll do the inverse. Oops. Let's try one more time. And Douglas Bradley, you can add passing chords and secondary dominants as well. Yes! Yes, you can. That would fall under, similar to like the sus chords, that would fall under reharmonization strategies. So these first 4 are basically just non-reharmonization things that don't require a lot of music theory knowledge. Once this one, it starts to get a bit broader, and then all of that starts to become much more and more challenging. I have lots of tutorials though on YouTube, and again, my textbook has lots of options, and of course, there are also private lessons. You can purchase lessons one at a time, or you can sign up for a mentorship program where it's a monthly fee, and we meet twice a month, keep open dialogue, and we work on whatever your goals are together. So just to have emphasize, so to summarize, Polat, you requested specifically how to escape chord progressions. All right, structure is important. Figuring out your structure ahead of time is important because your structure, for example, AABA, will tell you the number of themes you need and the order they need to appear in. So for example, going back to my concerto example that I'm working on, I knew that for my exposition, I needed my theme A, repeat my theme A, transition, theme B, theme B. All right, so it's AABB. That's the shape of an exposition. So I knew that I needed 2 different chord progressions, one for theme A, one for theme B, 3 if I wanted a transition, which is exactly what I did. And in this case, well, let's listen to a little bit. The structure helped me escape the chord progression. because I just know I need to change themes. So I'm gonna change chord progressions to go to my theme. Then if you want to have a transition, you can, which is what I did here. You don't need a transition. I could have just as easily jumped into my next theme. And a new chord progression. I had a transition here, but you don't always need a transition. For example, over here in my development section, I have a non-dedicated transition. So I do transition here, but I don't have a dedicated transition. So here I had an entire 4 bars dedicated to just transitioning. I'm not playing either theme. But over here in the development section, I had no such development section or no such transition. I just went from one theme right into the next. Where is it? Where am I looking? Right here. Between the exposition and the transition. Here we go. And then just immediately next into the next theme. And next chord progression. So, all that to say, structure will be your best friend in helping you escape chord progressions because it will just tell you when to leave your chord progression. I've done live streams on structure and everything. If you want a private lesson on structure, if you want to read on structure, there's plenty of resources out there, all right? I can point you in the right direction. Just send me a message. Then we talked about how repetition in music is not a bad thing. Harmony and melodies can be very repetitive because there are 7 other parameters in music. If your harmony and melody sound too repetitive, chances are they aren't. Chances are you just haven't added enough variety using the other 7 parameters. All right, you haven't changed. So try escaping it with trying different instruments, changing the type of texture, the number and types of layers. Change the tempo, the rhythm, register, articulations, or dynamics. Change any of those to add a little bit more variety. And then for your specific question, to give you some actual strategies, specific strategies for adding variety to chord progressions without reharmonizing. So reharmonizing requiring some knowledge of music theory. I am a huge fan of reharmonizing. Like I said, harmony is my favorite thing in music. It's what I'm best at. But you can do change the inversions. Change the we said change the timbre, change timbre, change the type, which could be sustained, rhythmic, or arpeggiated. Arpeggiated meaning like playing one at a time. So if we wanted to add more variety, you could say, where is it? Where's the sample? Over here. So you could say instead of doing all the chords at once, you say A minor. And then you just keep kind of. So you can have arpeggiated where you just create a pattern. Why is my piano not playing? It's because it's on the wrong thing. Where you kind of arpeggiate the ideas. Or maybe my keyboard's just not working in general. Regardless. Arpeggiated, you can have them be sustained like this, or you can even have them be rhythmic, all right? Where you have cool little rhythmic ideas that you're playing. You can... What were the other ones we did? We could do change the voicings. Open versus closed, which was one that we did together. And you can use part writing. Each of these not really requiring a lot of music theory, but they're very useful strategies for adding variety. All right, excellent. All right, wonderful. Hopefully that's useful. Let's move on, shall we? Don't forget to like the stream, people. If you're finding this helpful, leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All these things help. Quick advertisement break, cause your boys gotta eat, right? A couple things. Bookshop. You will notice there is an interesting item in the bookshop. I am hosting a 12-week string writing intensive. These are 12 weeks of private lessons, essentially. We have 4 students who are involved in this particular class. You can see the curriculum that we've decided on. I'll pull this up in just a moment. Where if you watch this video, it breaks it down a little bit. But the idea is there's a form that you fill out when you purchase this that lets me know what you want to learn. The basic topic is string writing, but everybody fills in their goals, the things they want to learn from this class. And using that, I built this curriculum. Is this the right one? No, this is the different curriculum. This is for something else. This is the storytelling class that I'm doing. Where is it? All right, okay, here it is. This is the curriculum for it. We're going to be talking about, basically, we're talking about instrumentation, writing for the string section, writing melodies, writing harmonies, arranging for strings, mixing, arranging, orchestrating, all kinds of really cool stuff, working with DAWs versus notation software. Everybody had different goals that they put in. It's weekly lessons for 12 weeks with the class, weekly feedback on your music. $300 for the full class. You get access to a private group. Yeah, so that's sale number 1. Check it out. There are 2 spots left. I am maxing the class at 6 students. We have 4 students so far. We're getting ready. Right now, the current meeting time is every Wednesday at noon, Detroit time. So if that works for you, that's when we'll be meeting. But if more students join and want to find a different time, I am open to meeting twice a week to make sure everybody can make it to things. If we just can't find a time that works for everybody, we can do up to 2 different times to make sure that everyone can make it to a weekly lesson. Got all my textbooks, and private lessons, obviously. Private lessons, you can book single lessons, or you can play a monthly membership for mentorship, where we get 2 lessons every single month. You get to message me directly. We get feedback on all your assignment. You get access to my library of short films to practice. We can build a portfolio for you. We can work on feedback on all your music, learning new genres and styles, deciding your workflows, learning mixing, all that cool stuff. I've worked with students across 6 continents. The only continent I have not worked with is Antarctica. So if you're doing a research expedition, you're looking for a music teacher, let me know, because that'd be really cool to say I've done all 7. But I've worked with over 100 students. I've worked with students at ranging from ages 17 to 77. Worked with students at top universities, colleges, and conservatories like Berkeley, Boston, and Juilliard. And yeah, I love to teach. It's something I'm good at. So if you want private lessons, check it out. I do limit the number of people I accept for the mentorship. All right. So if you try signing up, but it's closed and it says not currently taking, that's why. But I currently have space for 3 more students signed up for the monthly program. Welcome, Sudhanva. All right, now advertisement break out of the way. Let's get back to it, shall we? And I closed it, didn't I? I closed it. All right, Control-Shift-T. Control-Shift-T. Here we go. All right. Popped up over here. Let's move on, shall we? So the next one we have Pineapple Panda, another regular. Thank you, Panda. Requests, do you think the percussion here has good power? Do they support the rest of the piece well enough? Of course, any other things you wish to point out for improvement and I haven't noticed would be appreciated. Well, let's find out, shall we? Excellent. Wonderful job, Pineapple Panda. I'm going to use you as an example, all right? This is a prime example, a wonderful example of what I've been saying, all right? This is a very beautiful piece of music, very high energy, very awesome, very epic. To answer your question, yes, the percussion I think works really, really well. This is a example. I want to make this very, very clear. This is not an insult. Hopefully, if you've been watching this live stream, you understand the importance of what I'm about to say. This is a fine example of how repetition is not the enemy of music. This is a very repetitive piece of music, but repetition is done very, very well. Remember, all right, our theme for this stream apparently is repetition and structure. Repetition gives your music legitimacy. Variation keeps it fresh. All right, and remember what I said earlier. Repetition needs a purpose, all right? Repetition in the music has a term. It's called intensifying. Anytime you hear, sorry, tickle my throat. Anytime you hear in music the term intensify, that means to repeat, all right? Throughout this piece, there's a brass part, the bum, 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 or something along those lines. The trombones, it sounds like. It's a repetitive rhythmic part, and yet it doesn't get old, all right? Repetition can guide energy. Remember those two ideas, two most common, are building / reducing energy. Each repetition builds energy. Each repetition reduces energy. Whatever you're doing, you're building up or you're moving back down. You're calming down. Those are the two most common uses for repetition. And here we have, throughout this piece, we have this repetitive brass part. I bet if I click anywhere, we'll hear it. Yep, you hear the brass. It's just rhythmic chords, same basic rhythm, but each time it gets repeated, it builds energy. New layers are added to the music. New ideas are introduced. It keeps building. That repetition provides a groove, an anchor that allows us to feel familiar. Like we're like, all right, we're still part of the same piece of music, but as new ideas are introduced, it provides an anchor, a point of focus through which the other layers can grow and develop and contribute to the growth of the music. All right, does that make sense? So fantastic use. Thank you, Pineapple Panda. I don't think you're on here, but that's a fantastic example of what I've been saying through this entire stream. Repetition is not to be avoided. It just needs to be used well. All right, and this was an example of repetition that was used very, very well. Yes, the harmonic chords were a repetitive rhythmic idea. So rhythm and harmony were repetitive, but the timbre changed. The instruments being used shifted here and there. Texture, the number and types of layers changed. We had other rhythmic ideas come in. Register, we had different ideas. Melodies up here, melodies down here, melodies in the middle. It moves all over the place. The types of articulation changed. Some were longer, more kind of lazier, like slower, sluggish, while others were crisp and fast. The dynamics shifted. If we had a view of this, audio, like if we could see the audio like we can on like whatchamacallit, SoundCloud, then you can see that there's variation in the dynamics. It's very, very well done piece of music. So for percussion, Pineapple Panda, wonderful job. You had a very simple question. I feel really stuck with this piece. I had to completely remove them. Nope, that was Polat. Sorry, Polat. Do you think the percussion here has good power? Do they support the rest of the piece well enough? Yeah, I think so. If you wanted this to be a very percussion heavy piece, like a Tom Holkenberg Mad Max type score, then yeah, they probably could have been brought in. You could layer in new libraries playing the same idea. That's one way to build more power. You could try chain compression. That's another great way to give your percussion a bit more power. But for the purpose in this, I think it worked really well. For those of you who are unaware, there are 3 fundamental approaches to percussion. All right, these are not all encompassing, but they tend to be like 3 basic sense fundamental. All right, orchestral / instrumental. There are 7 roles. The 7 roles. Doubling for color. Let's see if I can remember all these. Ostinati, or repeated rhythmic parts. Extreme dynamics. Solo statements. Highlighting. Accents. builds slash climaxes, and harmonic support. Heck yeah. Woo, you boys got it. These are the 7 roles of orchestral percussion. If you're thinking about like symphonic music, like John Williams, a very classical style, this is how John Williams uses percussion. These are the 7 roles. He uses the percussion as a supporting group. They can double other instruments to add a unique sound. They can play rhythmic parts. They can take advantage of the extreme dynamics. The softest and loudest sounds in the orchestra are both percussion sounds. Solo statements, you can give like a vibraphone or a xylophone their own little solo statement to Celeste. You can highlight accents with a drum crash or a cymbal, drum hit or cymbal crash. You can have a build like a drum roll, a cymbal roll, followed by a smash on the cymbal or whatever, and harmonic support through pitched percussion instruments. This is a traditional, classical approach. Then you have what we will call the cinematic slash epic slash trailer approach, which groups music, percussion into 3 parts. Timekeepers, which are constant rhythms. So these are like constant 8th notes, constant 16th notes, straight rhythms that act we'll say straight rhythms that act as a sort of metronome for controlling energy slash groove. I spelled metronome wrong. Metronome. All right. Then you have the rhythmic ideas, which play the basic groove. You can think of this as like the boom, 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 like the whatever rhythmic part that you want the percussion to really have. The kind of drum part. And then you have hits, which highlight the most important beats in the rhythmic layer. All right? So these are the 3 layers of percussion that tend to be used. All right? And then you have the drum kit. All right? Hi-hat is the timekeeper. Snare equals the backbeat, weak beats. All right, again, as a timekeeper, because you got to keep in mind the purpose of the drum kit. The drum kit is there to help the rest of the band keep time together. The drum kit is the pseudo conductor of a band. All right, then after the snare, you have the kick equals the groove, strong beats, and personality of the drums. All right, this is where you get like the drum equivalent of a melody, where it's the personality. All right, hit the strong beats, and then you can add stuff in between if you'd like, but those strong beats are most important. And then toms equals fills and transitions. All right, so these are 3 fundamental approaches to percussion. I believe I've done a couple different live streams that go much more in depth. But yeah, for your piece, Pineapple Bandit, I think you did an excellent use of the percussion. I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's wonderful. And thank you for being my example of how repetition can be used very effectively. Welcome, Amplified Droid. Thank you, my friend. Welcome. Sudan Va, welcome. I believe I welcomed you. Thank you, everybody who's stopping by. This is turning out to be a pretty good stream. We are on to our second to last, I believe. Moayad, I apologize for butchering the pronunciation of your name. Moayad requests, this is a piece I've released before. What do you think about the harmony for the strings? Do you think I could make it better? And also the dynamics. Are they enough or do I need to add more dynamics? And thanks for this chance. Ooh, I've got some cool stuff I can share about this. Let's listen first. breathtaking. Beautiful, beautiful piece of music. All right, so first off, once again, I want to use you as an example. All right? Earlier, I feel like I glazed over a little bit. But when I was talking about structure and its use, in fact, I believe it was Polak. Figure out your strategy is the number one responsibility. Maybe it was for ad hoc. I shouldn't have deleted it. Should not have deleted it. And it was structure is I talked about climaxes. All right, as a reminder, the climax is the moment in your music where the music reaches its most intense levels. So I talked about structure is the number and order of different themes used in your music. It's the shape of your music. If you have 3 melodies, 3 themes that get used, here's the order they appear in, how many times they get repeated, etc., etc., etc. All right? The climax, so if we say we have an AABA, and I think the example I gave was at the B section, is the climax. Structure is the number one step for every composer. All right? Whether you're aware that's what you're doing or not is another matter, but it's always the number one step. That's how you know you're writing an actual piece of music, is when you have an idea of what that structure needs to be. Otherwise, you're just doodling around. The climax is the moment in your music where the music reaches the most intense levels. If you want your music to make sense, if you want it to have a sense of internal logic, figure out where/when the climax will occur. For example, in section B. Then decide which parameters will be used to create the climax. Remember, we said that there were 9 parameters: tempo, texture, timbre, rhythm, register, dynamics, articulation, harmony, melody. Is that everything? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. So that's all 9. These are the 9 parameters. Decide which ones are going to play the biggest role in your climax. So, for example, in this piece, Moyad, I'm sorry, my friend, I am butchering your name. Moyad used rhythm, texture, timbre, and dynamics. These are the 4 defining characteristics, and this is after just one listen. I'm sure there's more, maybe there's less. But these are whether you are aware of it, my friend, or not. These are the 4 parameters that define your climax. These are the 4 that reach their highest peak during your climax. Once you understand the parameters responsible for your climax, they can be used as the guiding parameters for controlling energy throughout your piece. All right? This is the wonderful, wonderful example. All right? We're going to listen to the first minute of this again. Keeping in mind, rhythm, texture, timbre, and dynamics. These are the 4 elements that I recognized, listening to it just once, as being crucial to the climax, right? We'll see that there are 2 climaxes in this piece. We have one right here and one right here. The second one being more intense than the other because it uses registers. The strings shoot up even higher. Listen how, as this builds, these 4 parameters, rhythm, texture, timbre, and dynamics, and we'll even throw in register, how these are used to build energy. We hear, all right, the music starts becoming more rhythmically active. All right, additional voices and layers are being added. Additional instruments are being used. The dynamics are getting louder, and the number of octaves and registers being used are building. Now listen how to these 4 are heard building.
This is not a drill. You can get the new iPhone 16e with Apple Intelligence for just $49.99 when you switch to Boost Mobile.
No, thank you. I will take my beat up little whatever Samsung thing this is. All right, let's see here. Just solo piano. I'll do a commentary. This is not it. This is fine. Okay. Again, solo piano. Just the melody and chords. These are the 4 that we're using. It's becoming more rhythmically active. That builds energy. Texture and timbre. We have a new layer and a new instrument. It's getting a little louder. More voices, faster rhythms, larger more new instruments, louder dynamics, more octaves. We have our new climax. Then if we fast forward, forgive me, you can see how these four are again the ones that are being used to control the energy. We're back down, all right? Slower rhythm, thinner texture, same instruments but fewer of them, so there's no high strings, just the cello and piano. It's a softer dynamics, and we're using fewer octaves. Now watch as we build the energy again. Forgive me again for skipping. Those four are used again. This time, the high strings are even higher. There's even more rhythmic ideas, even more voices and layers. All right, again, forgive me for stopping. But you can see how this is a very crucial method for composing. Once you understand what the peak energy of your music will be, you want to identify which tools, which of these 9 parameters are going to be the most crucial. You'll probably use all of them, but which are going to be the most important? Because those most important parameters that will be the defining ideas behind your climax, things that make it the most climactic, those are going to be the tools that you want to use to control energy throughout all the whole piece. So if you're like, all right, the energy needs to come back down. How do I do that? All right, well, brainstorm across those crucial ideas. And these ideas will change based off your arrangement. A full orchestral arrangement can use registers and timbre in ways that a string quartet cannot. All right, because a full orchestra is capable of a much wider range. Well, not much wider, but a wider range than a string quartet. A single orchestra can go more registers. An orchestra can go with more sounds, different types of sounds. It gets more capable of stronger dynamics, more harmonic layers, more ideas. But whatever ideas you do use, it's all relative. Pick your most defining parameters that will create your climax and use those to control the energy throughout the entire piece. Does that make sense? If you want to learn more, like I said, a fantastic book is the one I was holding up earlier. Musical Composition, Craft and Art by Alan Belkin. It's a little dry, but it's still a fantastic book. If you like my style of teaching, I also covered this entire thing in much more depth in my own book, The Musical Storyteller. All right. So, Moyad, you asked specifically, when I think about the harmony for the strings, I think it is breathtaking. All right. Again, the use of more than just harmony, I think what's most breathtaking, and it's actually a very common strategy for creating goosebumps in your audience, is taking an idea and introducing a new register, a new sound. There's always a hierarchy in climaxes. There should be a hierarchy in climaxes. If you have 2 climaxes in your music, one of them should be more intense. The second one is the most intense because if we listen to this, you can hear. Listen to the highest layer in this section. And now listen to it over here. It's an octave higher. That intensification, that bringing it even higher, adding a new register is a fantastic strategy for just goosebumps, all right? So I think the harmonic support in the strings is absolutely beautiful. Your harmony is breathtaking. Do you think I could make it better? And also the dynamics, are they enough or do I need to add more dynamics? I think you do a fantastic job, all right? With the dynamics, I wouldn't change anything about the dynamics. Something I will say, something you do very well. Strategies for controlling dynamics that go beyond cranking the volume. All right, you can control the number of instruments used, the registers used. Higher registers feel louder. You can use the number of octaves. And yeah, we'll stop there. well, 3 is good. And these are 3 that you use very, very well, very expertly. All right, you change the number of. I'm just geeking out. This is a very good. This is very well done. I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point. But yeah, so other than just adding a higher octave, you can create a shift in dynamics by adding or removing instruments. You can create the feeling of stronger dynamics by increasing the number of octaves and registers being used at one time, or reducing them could create a sense of feeling smaller. Dynamics go beyond volume. That is the most common feel. Oh, that's a common term for dynamics, is the volume, but it's more accurately described as the feel, to which volume is a big player. Welcome everybody. Got some new faces on here. Welcome, my friends. So wonderful job. I'm not sure if you're on here, my friend. I don't think I saw your name. But fantastic job. Thank you for sharing your music. We are on to one last submission. All right. Requests for this piece from Adam. I wanted a lighter and more spacious texture, but my concern is that it actually comes across as sparse and unbalanced. Do you think this is the case? Do you think this is more of an arrangement issue or a mixing issue? Ooh, that is a beautiful, excellent question. Additional notes. Thanks for doing these feedback sessions. I know myself and so many others really do appreciate it. Thank you, Adam. I will actually, little note, all right? A little note for those of you, not calling people out. I'm just saying, like, it's nice. Like, being polite goes a long way. Adam, my friend, you actually submitted this piece of music past the deadline. You submitted this piece this morning, I believe. The deadline was last night at midnight. But because you threw in such a wonderful, kind little comment in the email, I was like, you know what? I got it ahead of time. I could still listen to it. You were the only person to submit past the deadline, so it's not like I had a whole bunch of people submitting. You're not someone who tried submitting a piece during the live stream. But thank you. Yes, your polite appreciation, I appreciate it. So thank you very much. Yeah, you made me smile. You made me smile when I read this, and so that's why we're still doing your piece. Let's give it a listen. Ooh, lots of moody pieces today. was fun. All right. I like that. Gave off kind of like spooky vibes almost. Maybe it's the image or something, but I love it. I love the use of the accordion. That's not an instrument we hear a lot. So I'm sorry, let me digest this a little bit. I really like that. All right, so first off, right off the bat, you asked about sparse orchestration. I think it's great. I don't think that's an issue. There are pieces with significantly smaller instrumentation that work just as well. I think this is a great piece. I don't think that's the issue. One thing I would say, the only thing that stuck out, again, going off our theme of repetition and variation in this stream, the melody never left your piano. You brought in other instruments, which was fantastic, but you never gave the listener a break from the piano. And if you want the melody to be in the piano the entire time, that's fine. But it was just always in the same octave, always in it's all in the same register, always in the right hand of the piano. Even when other instruments came in to double it, it never left the piano. Allow yourself to break away from it a little bit. Sometimes, even if you want it to be in the piano the entire time, maybe put it in the left hand kind of thing. So this actually brings up a very important thing. Again, going back to the idea of structure and repetition. Structure, one more time, is the number and order of different themes / melodies in a piece of music. So for example, AABA is the running example we've been using throughout this entire stream. In each section of your structure, you can use the 9 parameters as a guide to variation / repetition. All right? Think again, those 9 parameters: tempo, texture, timbre, register, rhythm, dynamics, articulation, melody, and harmony. These 9 parameters. The more of these parameters that 2 sections have in common, the more closely related they will sound. The fewer they have in common, the more contrasting they will sound. All right? So just for a couple quick examples. 2 sections with different melodies. They're going to sound very contrasting. But as we saw in here, when you have 2 sections with different melodies and different chord progressions, even though those sound very different, the fact that you had very similar instruments, very similar types of textures, the rhythmic left hand of the piano, very similar types of articulation and dynamics, the more of these that are in common, the more related they will sound. If you want more contrast, explore different options. Specifically, like I said, the texture and timbre for this piece. If you get that piano to explore different types of accompaniment, explore different roles, let the accordion, which is a beautiful, beautiful instrument, especially in this piece, allow that to take the front seat for a little bit. I think this is a fantastic piece. I don't have much to say about it other than that. I think it's very well done. I don't think your issue is being sparse and unbalanced. I don't think that's an issue with the arrangement. I think if you want to, take advantage of register, timbre, and texture. These are 3 that get ignored a lot, or at least not ignored, but they don't seem to come as intuitive to many composers as, say, melody and harmony. This entire time, we keep getting people who submitted this time saying, hey, this feels really repetitive, or this feels really repetitive. How do I fix that? A lot of the time, you don't have to adjust. The issue isn't the harmony. The issue isn't the melody. The issue is the texture, timbre, and register. Remember, texture being the Alt 2-6. That's how you get a right arrow. Texture being the number and types of layers being used. Melody, chords, bass line, etc. You can add a lot of variety, and lots of composers like Hans Zimmer and John Williams do this by changing the texture. All right, John Williams will like, I've got melody and an arpeggio. And then in the next section, he's got melody, counter melody, chords, bass line, ostinati to feel huge. And he comes back down. Just melody and arpeggio again. This time with a bass line to feel like it's gone somewhere. Timbre, you can change the instruments playing each layer of your texture. This is especially playing each layer. If you have a very small ensemble like this, a very intimate sized group, You don't have to change the instruments every time, but you can change their responsibility. Instead of having the piano play the melody the entire time through, give the piano a break from the melody. Let it play the bass line. Let it play the chords like it's been doing. Let it play a counter melody. Let it do other things and let the foreground go to a different instrument. And then register. Change which octaves/registers the layers are played in. So again, the melody constantly being in the right hand on the piano. Change it to the left hand. Let it come down an octave or two. Let it move around. Add variety through these other ways. Lots of people, when they think adding variation to their music, they get stuck on how do I change the melody? How do I change the harmony? And sometimes they'll think, how do I change the instrumentation? Very rarely will beginner and intermediate composers think, all right, how do I change the texture? How do I change the register? How do I change all of these other 6 parameters of music, which are at your disposal? So that would be my recommendation. Beautiful piece. Gave me Haunted Mansion vibes, which is a movie I haven't seen since easily over a decade, but that's the vibe I got. Very beautiful. That brings us to the end of another stream, my friends. Thank you to everyone who submitted a piece this time around. Thank you, my friends. Beautiful pieces of music. Breathtaking as always. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your willingness, your generosity, for sharing your beautiful music with all of us here on the stream. One last advertisement for myself because I need to eat. Remember, I am doing a 12-week string writing intensive. There is space for 2 more students. This is a 12-week class. The first class is going to be August 30th, I believe. No, July 30th, Wednesday at noon, Detroit time. This is the weekly time. We're meeting every Wednesday at noon. If we get 2 or 3 more students and that time doesn't work for you, if there are 2 or 3 students who that just doesn't work for, I will be happy to meet 2 times a week so we can find a team that everybody can make it at least once per week. But it's a 12-week class. We'll be discussing composition through the lens of writing for strings. Basically, when you purchase this, you're given a form, you submit the goals, the things you want to learn by the end of the class, and it's my job to put all of it together into a single class, and the united theme is we're going to learn about composing through writing for the string section. Weekly feedback, weekly assignments. Join a group. There are 4 students currently. We have room for 2 more students who can join. So space is limited. We'll be starting on Wednesday. Like I said, all lessons will be recorded, so you get access to that afterwards. You get to hold on to that. You get feedback on your homework. If a class setting is not your vibe, I do private lessons. I currently have space for a couple students if you'd like that. I have worked with students across 6 continents. I have worked with over 100 private students. I have wonderful reviews you can see here. And I've worked with students of all ages, all experience levels, from complete beginners to professionals. And of course, there's also all of my books. All right, check these out. Don't forget, I have my free book too, The Composer's Roadmap. Check that out. That's my little passion project. We're getting some good reviews for it. 5-star reviews. How many other? Yeah, from Kay, Brett, Caleb, and Barath. All said it was a 5-star review of a book. They love it. So thank you very much, my friends, for your reviews. If you have purchased any of my books, please consider leaving a review as well. I always appreciate that. Thank you, everyone who stopped by the stream. Don't forget to leave a like. And until next time, my friends, I will see you all next week. All right? Enjoy your weekend. Keep writing new music, my friends. I will see you all next time. If you want to submit music next time, remember, set your calendar. August 29th. That's the next one. I will be accepting music the week ahead of time. I'll see you all next time. Bye.